Now, when we celebrate Founders Day, when we celebrate Nkrumah, it is not about the person of Nkrumah that we celebrate. When we celebrate 21st September as Founders Day, we celebrate the enthusiasm and dedication of the youth for national liberation. When we celebrate Founders Day on 21st September, we celebrate the involvement of the mass of our women, the market women, the bakers, the farmers, and so on, in the struggle for national independence. We celebrate Hannah Kujo. We celebrate Dende Ashikrisha. We celebrate Madame Boko and others. We celebrate the vision, that vision, which came to the realization that women are an important part of our struggles for emancipation. When we celebrate the 21st of September, we celebrate the trade unions. We celebrate the trade unions, the leaders of the trade unions, the rank and file of workers who took up the struggle for national independence and built the foundations of today's Ghana. That is what we celebrate. When we celebrate August 4th as Founders Day, we celebrate mediocrity. We celebrate ethnic alliances. We celebrate the complete disregard of the role of the masses in the struggles of our people for total emancipation. That is where the argument is. The argument is not about Nkrumah versus Dankwa. The argument is not about CPP versus Ugcc and so on. The argument is about our national values. The argument is about how we attain independence. That is what it's about. You see, there's so many things that we ignore. Look at the leadership of the Ugcc when it was formed in 1947. And there's something very instructive about that leadership. If you look at the leadership of the Ugcc when it was formed in 1947, you will find that there was no Ashanti in the leadership. Significant. You will find that there was nobody from the north in the leadership. You will find that there was nobody from the Volta region in the leadership. Why? Have you asked yourselves why? Because the colony, so properly speaking, was the colony. And the colony was a small strip of land from Ugcc to Afrao, with the center being Accra, South Point, Cape Coast, Krabi, and Achimebuakwa. That is why in the leadership of the Ugcc in 1947, you had three persons coming from Kibi or around Kibi. Three persons, three of the leaders. That is why you had one guy and so on. You understand? So that in itself is a depiction. Is a depiction of the concept of nation as at 1947. So when we say that Nkrumah deliberately put together the pieces, put together Ashanti, the North, and the Volta region, incorporated them in the building of modern Ghana, that statement is affirmed by the kind of leadership that the Ugcc had in 1947. Okay? It was in 1948, when Nkrumah arrived in the Gold Coast, that the other segments of today, modern Ghana, were incorporated even in the Ugcc. It was the establishment of the Central Youth Organization, which brought on board people like Bedema, people like Jenkrejewu, Kobedusai, and others, which brought about people from the northern part of this country to become part of that embodiment of struggle for national liberation. And that was Nkrumah. Before 1948, how many Ghanaian women were mobilized into that struggle? The Ugcc did not have a women's wing. It was after 1948 when Nkrumah came onto the scene that a conscious effort was made to mobilize, to establish a women's wing and to mobilize women to become the center of the struggle for national emancipation. So the Hanakudos, the Dede Ashikrishas, the Madam Bokos and so on, came in with Nkrumah, not Dankwa, not Oforiatta, and not Akufo-Addo. You understand? The trade unions, the Anthony Woods, and so on, came in on the back of the CYO. They became an integral part of that struggle as a result of the influence and vision of the Osadifo. So it was Nkrumah who united the various segments of our country, brought them together deliberately to participate in that struggle. Now, I will come to some other aspects of why Nkrumah is the undisputed founder of the modern Republic of Ghana. But before that, I'd like to deal with a few issues which has come up in this discussion. I heard Dr. Mensah describe some of the policies of the colonial administration, especially under Ugcc and others, as prudent. And I disagree. There could not have been any prudent policy under colonialism. Let the white historians, let the apologists for the colonialists talk about prudent policies. We cannot be talking under prudent policies under colonialism. Because colonialism, the colonial enterprise, its primary objective was the pillage of our resources and our subjugation as a people. Any other thing that happened was incidental. Every governor in the colonial administration was a thief, stealing for the empire. Every governor in the colonial administration served the purpose of a buccaneer. You understand? So these could not have had prudent policies. It's not possible. Any other thing that happened was incidental to the extent of calming us down, whilst they stole our gold, stole our diamond, and even stole our people, stole our intellectual property and so on. So prudence would not apply to the colonial administration. And that's why I take offense when I hear Dankwa Buzia elements make the point that the colonialists left us a lot of resources which were dissipated by Nkrumah. Absolute nonsense! Crap! The colonial enterprise was not about saving the Gold Coast and Gold Coasters. It was about exploiting them, reducing them to hewers of wood and drawers of water. Another element which came up was the educational policy of Nkrumah. And I have in my hands Fight Back here, which is a publication by the Socialist Forum of Ghana. And in it, there's an article authored by Comrade Michael Nuno. And that article depends largely on government data available from the archives. The colonial data itself is part of the basis of this article. And he looks at the achievements in the educational sector under Nkrumah. And I just read just one paragraph. It says, measured against its 1951 manifesto, the achievements of the CPP far exceeded expectation. According to the Ministry of Education statistical data, enrollment in primary schools was 102,1 138 in 1950. That is, before the CPP came to power. This figure rose from 102,138 to 456,290 in 1961. Unbelievable. No government anywhere in Africa has achieved this. No government anywhere in Africa has achieved this. Then it rose to a phenomenal, from 102,000, it rose to 1,137,495 in 1966. Yes. Unbelievable. No government in Africa has done this. Perhaps no government in the world has managed to do this. This was done only by the Nkrumah government. It says, during the period 1951 to 1961, enrollment in 12 assisted secondary schools, including Achimota, and non-assisted schools, increased from 2,776 and 3,119 to 9,882. Now this is very significant. Very, very, very significant. The total number of people in secondary schools was 2,776. Can you believe? When Nkrumah was coming in, 2,776 people were in secondary school. This is the government's own figures. Now, listen, by 1966, from 2,000, it had risen to 42,101. Can you believe this? Enrollment in middle schools also increased by more than threefold from 1951 to 139,984 in 1961, doubling to a remarkable 267,434 by 1966. And then in addition to that, 2 universities were established. Which government could have done this? Now when some people look us in the face and said that when he came, there was so much money. Our time was leaving, it had reduced to 10%. This is what the money did. Was it sensible to keep the money in safes and in banks, while some people had no access to education? Or was it more sensible to invest the money in education? Alhaji Inusa Fuseni, he comes from the north, he will tell you his story. At a certain stage in our history before Nkrumah, there was only one middle school in the whole of the north. The whole of the north had one middle school, which was in Yendi. So if you finish primary school and you wanted to continue to middle school, you had to sit an entrance examination to be selected to go to the middle school in Yendi. And we are being told that the so-called money that the colonialists left should have been left. We shouldn't build schools and so on, so that we can say that there's so much money. What foolishness is that? Extreme foolishness. And yet, this is presented to us as an argument. If you look around Ghana today, you will find that most northern highly educated people above the age of 70 all went to school in Achimota. Ask yourself why. Because there were no educational opportunities for them up north. That is why Susan Alassane came to Accra to be educated. That is why all of them, R.S. Alassane and so on, all of them had to come south to be educated. All of them came south to be educated. Because the colonialists had imposed a ban on the north. The north was to produce a reserve labor force, laborers, to work on our cocoa farms and so on. They were not supposed to become lawyers and teachers and so on. It was Nkrumah who broke that. You understand? Now, Why do we argue that Nkrumah is the founder of Ghana? Because, you see, the Ghana project is a whole concept. The Ghana project we talk about, which Nkrumah was founder of, is a non-federated Ghana. It's a unitary Ghana project, one nation Ghana. That dream was Nkrumah's dream. All those who opposed Nkrumah advocated a federated republic. So this modern Ghana of a unitary state, a one state, how can we attribute it to Buzia or Dankwa or any of those people when they wanted a federation? What they wanted is not what we have today. What we have today is Nkrumah's idea, is Nkrumah's vision, is the foundation that Nkrumah built. Now listen, the Ghana project which Nkrumah initiated was a Ghana in which people were not seen as Kokomba or Fanti or Nzema and so on. It was a project who saw all Ghanaians as one people with a common destiny, struggling for prosperity for all of us as Ghanaians. Which amongst the so-called Big Six shared that vision? That is why Nkrumah deliberately introduced that boarding school concept in secondary schools, in which I went to Tema Secondary School, one of the Ghana Educational Trust secondary schools. And I didn't know who came from the Volta region, who was Ashanti, or who was Frafra. I knew who were in house 3 with me. The ethnicity did not matter. The only distinguishing feature on Tema Secondary School campus was where your house was, and so on. So you could be lying on top of the bunk bed, and the guy lying under your bunk bed could be coming 400 kilometers away from your hometown. It didn't matter. That is one of the things which cemented this national unity. That is why under Nkrumah, you didn't have to come from a district to become district chief executive there. You could be a guy born in Osu Alata, but you could be appointed as a district chief executive in Wale Wale, and it didn't make any difference. This clause in our constitution about ability to contest elections based on where you hail from and where you have property and so on did not exist under Nkrumah. So under Nkrumah, for as long as you are Ghanaian, you can contest elections in any and every constituency. It was part of the deliberate effort to build a united Ghana, which rose above ethnic identity and so on. Who shared that vision with Nkrumah? Who shared that vision with Nkrumah? Nobody. You understand? Nkrumah's vision of that Ghana, that new country called Ghana, is a vision of a country in Africa becoming the Mecca, the nexus of the struggle for the liberation of the whole Africa from the yoke of colonialism. Who shared that vision with Nkrumah? In fact, his opponents, who today are being presented to us as founders of the modern Republic of Ghana, were the people who said that Nkrumah wasted Ghana's money, giving 10 million pounds to Guinea. And I would explain why we had to spend that amount of money on Guinea. It was for our own interest and so on. But they didn't share that vision with Nkrumah, so they cannot be founders of this modern Republic of Ghana, which is the center of the liberation struggle throughout Africa. That is not their vision. They could not have founded that Ghana and so on. And I could go on and on and on. Basana, let me draw attention to something else. I've heard it said on several occasions that Nkrumah was in charge of Ghana for 15 years. It is not true. Nkrumah was not in charge of Ghana for 15 years. And Dr. Percy somehow tried to explain that. Nkrumah became leader of government business in 1951. What government business was he leading? It was a colonial government, not a Ghanaian government. So Nkrumah, as leader of government business, had no control over foreign policy. He had no control over the finance ministry. He had no control over the defense ministry and so on. Nkrumah could not have been in charge in 1951. He was not in charge in 1951. Nkrumah became prime minister in 1957. Yes, he became prime minister in 1957. But prime minister in Her Majesty's government. The head of state at the time was Queen Elizabeth of England, not Kwame Nkrumah. You understand? Ghana's republican status, the modern Republic of Ghana, its birth started in 1951, but did not end in 1951. It did not even end on 6 March 1957. That birth of a new republican state of Ghana was on 1st July 1960. 1st July 1960 was the concluding part of that journey of building the modern Republic of Ghana. Now, I'd like to ask, even on 6 March 1957, at the Declaration of Independence, where were those people who today are being touted as the founders of Ghana? Where were they? The films are there. Fortunately, at that time, the film industry had developed to the extent that you could capture the films. Where were they? Where was Dankwa? Where were all of them? They were nowhere. Nowhere near the Declaration of Independence. Indeed, the historical record is that they actively attempted to subvert independence. They sent a delegation to the United Kingdom to tell the British government that we were not yet ready for independence. That they needed to teach us their ways more so that we become mature in their ways before they gave us independence. So they didn't want independence on 6 March 1957. When did they want independence? We don't know. Maybe in 2075. We don't know. But they wrote a letter which was delivered by K.A. Busia to the British government that we were running too fast. We were not ready for independence. Don't give these people independence. They did that. How can they today be claiming to be founders of something they hated so much? They hated with passion. How can they? You see, the Nkrumah Ghana project, in its pure essence, is a modern republic. Modern republic. Welding its people together on the basis of a shared vision of prosperity, of the development of science and technology and so on. That is the vision. In the same book on page 43, there's something very interesting. J.B. Dankwa's propeller, his main propeller, was the chief of Achimegbuakwa, Sir Oforiatta II. Now listen to this. This is an article which is authored by Dr. Botwe Asamoah. Okay? And Dr. Botwe Asamoah is a distinguished academic and so on. Historian and all. And he writes this on page 43 of the book Fight Back. Very interesting. In his September 1st, 1955 proposal to the Achimegbuakwa State Council, Oforiatta II warned that any stool heir in the state and royal member of Chebi dynasty who supported the CPP will be committing a subversive activities against the chiefs and chieftaincy. 1955, September 1st. In the process, the Achimegbuakwa state resources were mobilized in support of Dankwa. The Ochini's great oath was also administered to 140 chiefs. Yet still, after all of this, Dankwa was defeated in the 1956 general election by his nephew, Kofi Asante Ofori-Atta of Tafo. So this is the Dankwa project. The Dankwa project was a project in which 140 chiefs were made to take the Ugcc. They were sworn to support Dankwa simply because he was an Achim, not because he was a Ghanaian, not because he was a Gold Coaster. Just simply because he was an Achim. Is this the vision of the modern Republic of Ghana? This is certainly not the vision of the modern Republic of Ghana. This man could not be the founder of the modern Republic of Ghana. You see, again, I like to go to the historical record. It's interesting. What was Dankwa's true position in the Ugcc? Dankwa's true position in the Ugcc was Eastern Regional Chairman of the Ugcc. Finished. In the Ugcc, Dankwa's position was Eastern Regional Chairman of the Ugcc. In fact, Dankwa's position is the same as the position of Jowak in the NDC today. Eastern Regional Chairman, that's all. So even within the Ugcc, he was subordinate to a certificate of Kwame Nkrumah within the Ugcc. Why? Dankwa is today being imposed upon us as one of the founders of Ghana, when he was clearly rejected by the people of Ghana, even by the people in his own hometown. Dankwa lost every election that he contested. Was even beaten by a people teacher in his own backyard. The only time Dankwa managed to get onto the Legislative Council and so on, he got there as a representative of the chiefs of Ebuakwa. His own people rejected him. He could not win election anywhere in Ghana. That's how popular he was. That's how the people of Ghana accepted him. Today, he's being foisted on us as the founder or one of the founders of the modern Republic of Ghana. My brother, you know something? It is the Akufo-Addo government which has decided that Founders Day should be shifted to 4th August. There are many reasons why that is unacceptable. That is unacceptable because if you take 4th August and you take 4th August as the date of the formation of the Aborigines Rights Protection Society, Nkrumah was not there. You understand? So by using 4th August, the date of the formation of the Aborigines Rights Protection Society, you deliberately take out Nkrumah. Now, if you take 4th August as the date for the formation of the United Gold Coast Convention in 1947, again, Nkrumah was not there. Nkrumah was in Britain. He was organizing in Britain. He was not there. So if you select these two dates as your Founders Day, what we are actually saying is that Nkrumah was not one of the founders of Ghana. How can anybody reading any of the historical records, any honest person come to the conclusion that you can have a Founders Day without Nkrumah? Unimaginable. You can't believe it. You understand? Unimaginable. There is something else. The forces which supported Dankwa, and the forces which today claim that Dankwa is the founder of the modern Republic of Ghana, were actually collaborators of the colonial empire. They were part of the colony. They were part of the administration of the colonial empire. Dr. Percy already has spoken eloquently about that device which they called indirect rule. What is indirect rule? The colonialists ruled through the chiefs. And their most favorite chiefs were honored with scholarships for their children, their grandchildren, and so on to go and learn law in England and come back and lord it over us. Those who did exceptionally well for the colonial administration were actually knighted and they became sirs. One of them was Sir Ofori-Atta. Why do you think that they made him sir? Because he served colonialism so well. This colonial agent was indeed one of the keenest supporters of Dankwa. Dr. Boke Asamoah, in one of the books that he has written, actually provides evidence of the collaboration of these chiefs who supported Dankwa with the colonial administration, and makes the point that they could not be interested in toppling the colonial project. I just want to read one paragraph, just one. It says, as Simonson points out, Oforeta gave eloquent proof of his loyalty to the empire, the British Empire, by contributing large sums of money to cover the cost of an aeroplane during the First Imperial War, World War I. In appreciation of this, a warplane was christened Achim Ebuakwa, and on receiving his CBE in 1919, Oforeta was presented with a linguist stick with silver mountains and a miniature airplane on top. This large financial contribution to Britain in its imperial war for world domination, including the domination of the Gold Coast, could have been used to develop Achim Ebuakwa, but no. Oforeta just aimed at securing greatest possible advantage in terms of economic benefit and political power for himself, his family, the royal lineage, the town of Chebi, with Dankwa as his legal wizard. So eloquent. So eloquently put by Professor Asamoah Boke. He puts it so damn eloquently. And then we could go on and on and on to demonstrate the common purpose of the colonialists and some of the leaders of the Ugcc who today are being portrayed as founders of the modern Republic of Ghana. Now, my brother, you know, this is another quotation from Professor Asamoah's book. And he says, in his July 13, 1959 letter to Mr. Brockway in London, J.B. Dankwa said, and the quotation begins, I was against any election as premature and favored the Constituent Assembly. Listen very carefully. This is 1959. And J.B. Dankwa is opposed to any election. He says, I was against any election as premature and favored the Constituent Assembly, where the preordained rulers will be selected to rule. To understand Dankwa's reason for disregarding the electoral processes and disrespecting the CPP victories and Nkrumah's government, we must point to the root of Dankwa's political ideology. Aside from being a tame student of Kant's moral philosophy, Dankwa Volume 1, Dankwa, including Busia, echoed and practiced Edmund Burke's ideology of the rule by the preordained elite, Bankole 1963 being 1968. Burke's political philosophy was developed at Oxford University into an ideology that the elite is born to rule the world. Thus, it does society great harm, Burke reasoned, if the masses are allowed to participate in governance by voting. Clear? Now, if you go into history, you find the evidence. That is why the Ugcc was a club of the elite until Kwame Nkrumah arrived. Now, Senna, those who make so much noise about Ugcc and how the Ugcc founded the country and so on, what is the historical evidence? Before Nkrumah arrived in the Gold Coast in 1948, the Ugcc had 3 branches. 1, 2, 3 branches. 1 in Accra, 1 in Sopon, and 1 in Sekondi Takoradi. Finish. 3 branches. Do you believe that these 3 branches could have secured independence for Ghana? Do you believe? 3 branches of the Ugcc. Could it have secured independence for Ghana? 1 in Accra, 1 in Sopon, and 1 in Sekondi Takoradi. That's how they got independence for us. What a joke. Within 1 year of Nkrumah's arrival in the Gold Coast, he had established 100 branches of the UGCC throughout the country. In the north, in Ashanti, in Brohafo, in Volta region, everywhere. 100 branches as opposed to the 3 branches. Who gained independence for Ghana? Who is the founder of Ghana? The people who established 3 branches? Or the man whose vision and action led to the establishment of 100 branches? Which one of them? They should stop this joke. This joking must stop. Let's face the reality. Let's face the reality. And if you're facing the reality, Ghana has only one founder. It will never change. Nkrumah is to us what Jose Marti is to the Cubans. And what Simon Bolivar is to the Venezuelans. Nkrumah is to Africa what Simon Bolivar is to South America. There is no equal, there is no parallel. And those who continue this infamy of trying to denigrate Nkrumah must understand in the clearest possible terms that their actions and utterances are like kicking a rock with your bare foot. The harder you kick, the more pain you suffer. The harder you kick, the more you bruise yourself. The harder you kick, the more invalid you become, and so on. All these people, all these forces will surely be swept into the dustbin of history, and they will remain in that dustbin and rot forever. There will be no rescue for them. These charlatans who deliberately want to change the history of Ghana are harming themselves and the people of this country and the people of the world. History will consign them to a dustbin in which they will stay and rot like the carcasses that the vultures pick. They will be like that, and there will be no salvation for them. Why, my brother? They claim that without them, Nkrumah could not have played any role in the struggle for independence. That's a bloody lie. Nkrumah's agitation for national independence for the whole of Africa began long before 1947 when the United Gold Coast Convention was established. Why? The records are there. Nkrumah was the secretary of the 5th Pan-African Congress, which was held in Manchester in 1945. The final resolution of the 5th Pan-African Congress held in Manchester in 1945 declared that all Africans have a duty to struggle against colonialism and to defeat colonialism everywhere in Africa. And that, after the defeat of colonialism, we needed to unite as African people to establish the United States of Africa under the banner of socialism. That was in 1945. 1945. Pa Grant, who is the founder of the Ugcc, had not even thought of establishing the Ugcc by 1945. Nkrumah was already in the field, campaigning, organizing, fighting for the liberation, not just of the Gold Coast, but of the whole of Africa. And that's an important part of our history. That's one of the reasons why we firmly believe that Nkrumah is the founder of the modern Republic of Ghana and the inspirator of total African liberation and unity. And there is no challenger. Nobody can challenge the facts as they are. Now, my brother, there's something very interesting. And I tried to read. I tried to read Padmore. I tried to read Marconi, their letters and so on. I tried to read them. When the Ugcc approached Nkrumah to become its general secretary, Nkrumah refused. Nkrumah's first reaction was to refuse. And he said, what am I going to do with this bunch of elitists who are struggling just for the independence of the Gold Coast? Nkrumah said the tax is much bigger than the independence of the Gold Coast. The tax is the total liberation of Africa from the yoke of colonialism. That's what Nkrumah said. Now listen, by the time the Ugcc approached Nkrumah had already, together with others, established the West African Students' Union, whose prime objective was the liberation of the whole of West Africa from the yoke of colonialism. The historical facts are there. It was Padmore and Marconi who called Nkrumah and said, yes, we understand what you're saying. We understand that the liberation of the whole of Africa is the urgent and important task. But go and accept the offer of the Ugcc and use that as your first step in Africa. Go, liberate the Gold Coast. When you liberate the Gold Coast then, now Ghana, will become the center of the Pan-Africanist movement, which will ginger that struggle for the total liberation of Africa and so on. So on the advice of Marconi and Padmore, Nkrumah accepted the offer to become General Secretary of the Ugcc. Why? Nkrumah came into Ghana and decided that these polite letters, very polite letters that the Ugcc leadership was writing to the Queen and so on, would achieve nothing. And that we needed to ramp up the struggle, declare positive action, strikes, use mass agitation to overthrow colonialism. The Ugcc leader said, we'll have nothing of this. We want to continue drinking our coffee and tea at our meetings. We don't want to go to prison. We want to continue writing polite letters to the Queen and so on. Why are you coming to disturb this order? They condemned Nkrumah and sought to remove Nkrumah as General Secretary. In the face of mass rebellion of the members of the Ugcc. When they faced the rebellion of members of the Ugcc over the attempt to remove Nkrumah as General Secretary, they then said, well, maybe we can play another trick. Yes, the people love Nkrumah. The people are following Nkrumah and not us, okay? So if we remove Nkrumah completely from the Ugcc, it will affect us. So let us keep Nkrumah as treasurer. So they came up with a proposal now to remove Nkrumah as General Secretary of the Ugcc and make him treasurer. And the masses said no. You ain't going back to that moribund organization. They talk about betrayal by Nkrumah, that they brought Nkrumah into the Gold Coast and Nkrumah betrayed them. What rubbish is that? Given the agenda they were pursuing, were they not supposed to be betrayed? Betraying them was a heroic national duty. Because if you don't betray them, it means you're going to follow this useless agenda that they had, which was not leading to independence. So if it is true that Nkrumah betrayed them, I salute Nkrumah for betraying them. Because they were not worth the confidence and trust of the Osadifo. Clearly not worth the confidence and trust of the Osadifo. Now, listen. Oh, take our currency notes. Something is happening in Sena. I don't know if you guys have noticed. Try getting a 2 cedi note and see how you struggle before you get it. Have you noticed? The 2 cedi note, which has Nkrumah's head on it, is now very, very difficult to get. To the extent that now people are suggesting that because the note has Nkrumah's head on it, it is being gradually withdrawn from circulation. Is that true? I don't know. But out there, that is the story. Now, today we have put the heads of some 6 people, including Nkrumah, on our currency, and we call them the Big 6. Do you know how they became the Big 6? Massa, they became the Big 6 because the colonial administration thought that it was the Ugcc leadership which instigated the 1948 riots. And these were the 6 leaders who were arrested. The historical record is there. It's not me who is saying it. 5 of the 6 denied any association with the ex-servicemen and the routing. All of them said, look, if you want to deal with somebody, deal with Nkrumah. Nkrumah is the agitator. Nkrumah is the one behind all this routing. Of the Big 6, of the 6 of them, it was only Osadifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah who said that, yes, I support the routing. I support the ex-servicemen. I support positive defense of colonialism. So How can you tell me about this big six? Why are the big six? What makes them big six? One, the big one. Finish. That big one is in Nkrumah. The five, they are small. They are not big. Because they denied what made them the big six. They said they were not involved. It was only Nkrumah was causing trouble. If you want to arrest somebody, arrest Nkrumah, not us. And today we said big six. What is big six? Big one and small five. That's what we have. One big one and small five. That's all. That's what we have. So even this big six story, if you examine it, it won't stand. It has no foundation. You understand? I don't want to talk about Preventive Detention Act and Protective Custody Law and so on, because that's not what we are discussing today. That's not what we are discussing, but I have time. I have time. Anybody who wants a debate, please come. Come with your historical record. Authentic historical record, and let's debate. I'm ready for that. And I'm sure that I'm not the only person who's ready for that. There are so many people who are armed with the facts, who are ready for a national debate, proper national debate on our history. And Dr. Percy is sitting here, is ever ready. Professor Samuel Botwe is ever ready. I'm sure Benaya Gentwa is ever ready. We are all ever ready. Bring it on. Let's talk history and its facts. And at the end of the day, let's see what happens. The people who say that as for them, Founders Day is so important to them. And they are trying to appropriate Founders Day for themselves and their relatives. What have they done? In the process, they have decided that 1st of July is no longer a national holiday. 1st of July. The final stage of independence is not important for them. They don't want it. So 1st of July, when we gain the Republican status, when we could have our own head of state, is not important for them. They have pushed it aside. These people, have they any moral authority to be talking about Founders Day? When they hate the Republican Day so much, the final culmination of our independence, they hate it. What authority do they have at all to be talking about founders and founder, apostrophe here and apostrophe there? They have no rights. You know the other shocking thing? African Liberation Day, the day on which all of us as Africans commit ourselves to struggle for the total liberation of the African continent from the yoke of colonialism and neo-colonialism, they've also abolished that one. But that doesn't surprise me much. Because I recall that in 1969, they were advocating Koni with apartheid. They said we should not impose sanctions on apartheid. So they wanted us to do Koni. You know what is Koni? To do Koni with apartheid. So if they don't like African liberation, oh my goodness, I understand. Me, a young boy, when the 1966 coup occurred. I was a young boy when the 1966 coup occurred. One of the things that they did, one of the crimes they committed against the African people, Nkrumah has set up camps in Ghana where those who were fighting for independence and against racism and apartheid and so on were being trained to go and fight from Mozambique, from Angola, from South Africa, from Zimbabwe and others. These traitors of the African cause, they did not just close these camps, these liberation camps. They allowed this obnoxious racist apartheid authorities access to the camps. Is it any wonder that African Liberation Day is no longer celebrated? Is it any wonder? It cannot be a wonder. But you see, Master, finally, I'm ending. All of this is possible. All of what is happening. The attempt to rewrite our history, the attempt to denigrate the achievements of Nkrumah, the attempt to push this country on the path to neoliberalism and so on, all of that is possible because of the charlatans in our own midst. It is not their fault. They are feeding on our weakness. And we are responsible for our weakness. Master, today, so-called Nkrumah's political parties, and I'm not going to mention any particular name and so on, how do they survive? How do they pay their rent? How do they pay their electricity? They go to the NPP and kneel before them and beg for money to run their parties. How can you build independent parties? How can you build independent parties? Today, for the crumbs that fall off the table of the elephant, there are so many of us ready to do anything and everything. How can you build a viable Nkrumah's party? How can you build a strong, progressive, united, democratic organization to seek power? So the fault is ours. They are not at fault at all. They are doing what they are supposed to do. We are the people who have failed to do what we are supposed to do. We are the people who have betrayed the Nkrumah and his ideas. And Amilcar Cabral was right. Amilcar Cabral was right. When in his funeral oration, he stated, cancer which killed or surgical Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was the cancer of betrayal by the people he relied on. That is why Nkrumah himself, before he died, wrote in black and white, wrote himself, that if he were ever to come back to Ghana, he would change his ways and change the organizations that he worked with. That is why Nkrumah spoke about building a new political party, which he christened the All-African People's Revolutionary Party. So Nkrumah himself saw the danger. You know, my brother, I've done some work, little work, not much. Just go to the National Archives. Don't go far. Go to the National Archives. Go to the newspaper section and read the newspapers. All the newspapers. From February 24th, 1966 to February 24th, 1967. And you will weep for the Osadifo. The betrayal he suffered from his ministers. Unbelievable. His ministers, his own ministers. Betrayal, total betrayal. One of them trying to exonerate himself from what he claimed Nkrumah did and so on, and said they were all just gaping sycophants. Minister Nkrumah, somebody that Nkrumah had promoted through the hierarchy of the United Nations Organization, prominent Ghanaian in the international diplomacy and so on, flew back to the so-called Kotoka International Airport, knelt down and kissed the floor and said, now I breathe the air of freedom. These were ministers in the Nkrumah government. Some of the top activists in the Nkrumah government were working for the Central Intelligence Agency of the United States of America. We have betrayed Nkrumah. We have betrayed the aspirations of Nkrumah. We have made it possible for the enemies of Nkrumah to triumph today. And we should bow down our heads in shame. And we should remember that the masses of this country will deal with us. And they will pay us for our treachery and betrayal of the Osadifo and his ideals.
Thank you. Thank you very much.